to, in a space where, artists that are not really established or artists that are emerging could also come into that space. And for him to also put out that one piece of artwork is great. But what I would have said to him as a musician, because I don't know what his plans are after doing this, because that's something Sotheby does every year. But what I would have said to him is that, because after his last album, he said he wasn't going to put out any album. He wanted to go straight into producing. So I would have said to him, how about you create a series of paintings that visualize sound as a body of work and present it to Sotheby's. And then whilst you're in there as a platform, you use that to educate emerging artists that are trying to get into that space, rather than keep it limited within the people you know. But who knows what his plans is. He might come back in there and might want to do some more for people of color or for people that look like him. But then again, I'm happy for him, and I'm happy for what he's doing for people that look like me. So that's all I can say about it.
No, it's great you're happy, but you're right. I think sometimes it's very easy when you get this position of power to be like, who do I know? Let me just get the people that I know in on it.
100%.
But it takes real commitment,
Yeah.
Real allyship. If you're really trying to, decenter particular voices, that you go out and seek what's the word, art from places that you don't know, or
100%.
people you don't, because if not, it's very lazy, isn't
100%.
it? So I know you're very happy for him, but there is that frustration. Like, he didn't go further than the net that he's already cast.
Because there's people looking outside like, yo, how am I even going to get recognized? And if I have someone that looks like me that doesn't even recognize me, then how long is it going to take till I get in there? Do you know what I mean?
I totally agree with what you're saying, Koby.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to share a quick story before I respond to that Skepta situation. Before we started the Collective Makers, I used to attend to Merrisa's art collective, and that inspired me and a few other artists that we can make this bigger. And so, first of all, I just want to say thank you, Merrisa, for just inviting us to your collective at the time, because if not because of that, we wouldn't be here today. So I just wanted to highlight that quickly. And also, Koby, I saw your work on Instagram like years ago. I studied art when I was like 15 and stopped art, I think, when I graduated or whatever. But I saw your work and I said, if he can do it, I can do it too. Do you see what I'm saying? So I just want to say thank you as well to you for continuing, and now you're sitting on the panel together having this interesting conversation. Yeah. So thank you very much.
Thank you too, bro.
Back to Skepta now. So with
The Vim is coming.
So the Skepta situation, I totally agree with what Koby's saying, because from emerging artists and from those who want to pursue a career of being a visual artist would have questions of how would I get into spaces like that? I don't know the situation behind doors of how he managed to get in there, whatever, or whatnot, but it would have been great if there was some sort of convention around how to help more emerging black artists to be in those institutionalized spaces, because it's hard. But he has the power to do that because an artist he's an established individual, X, Y, Z. So that would have been interesting to find out how. But that doesn't mean just because he's done it doesn't mean no one else can't do it. It just allows us to be like, all right, cool. If he's done it, we're gonna do it as well. You know. And another thing as well that I would like to share as well is that with black people in general, I'll just say this straight. Sometimes we see ourselves want to work together, but sometimes it's just about the individual. And that's a problem, a big problem. But in the art space as well, it's also a problem. But however, you have to find like-minded individuals who has that same vision, who wants to go, if I'm growing, you're growing with me. Do you get what I mean? So it's one of those things where you have to go through that trial and error where you meet people. If it doesn't work, fine, we'll meet another person that will make that work, if that makes sense. So with the whole Skepta situation, I don't know. But for me, and if someone else has that kind of same idea that, okay, he's done it, that's fine, we'll figure out another way to do it, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No,
Do you know what? I reckon that's more of a UK problem, though.
It is.
Because in America, the Black Artists Network over there is huge, and they do stuff together. Like they have their own galleries, they have their own groups. But obviously, like we're on this little island here, and there's much more of them over there.
Yeah.
But we've still got this this crabs in the barrel thing with artists here, where it's just like, oh, I'm gonna do this thing, and if I want to be successful, I've got to make sure that nobody else knows what I'm doing, and that I don't work with anybody, and I don't tell anyone anything. And that's just not the case, because you know, one hand can't clap. So we need to. That's like my nan used to say, can't clap. But yeah, and that was the whole reason for, you know, for setting up BBVA, and then, you know, obviously I'm grateful that you both carried that on through the Collective Makers, because it was a case of so many artists working on their own, like just working individually, quietly, like in studios and in living rooms and on dining tables on their own. And nobody actually saying, oh, I'm here, I'd like to meet other artists, I'd like to do other stuff. So the whole thing about, you know, coming together and trying to get some kind of unity, it's a very idealistic way of thinking, but the only way we're going to actually be able to put it into actual practice if we get rid of this mentality that there's not enough space at the table for everybody, because there is.
Mm.
Or maybe we need to just build our own table. As
Or
they
just
always
get
say.
a bigger table, yeah.
For sure.
More chairs.
Should we change this table now?
That would be nice. I just wanted to bring it, I know we talk about things from a very structural perspective. I wanted to bring it to the individual and about your art and how it speaks to you. And Koby, I know that you've experienced the loss of your father, and you put that into your art. I just wondered how that process was for you.
Okay, so my parents were very, they were heavily involved in me being an artist. They were very encouraging. So obviously I was born in Ghana, and my parents were, my dad was a petroleum chemist, and my mom was a creative. She was like a seamstress. But, you know, they wanted to see me thrive. And from an early age, I started painting from the age of 3. So seeing that, they knew I wasn't academically, you know, strong in the other subjects. So they just wanted to see me thrive. So after my secondary school education in Ghana, I was meant to go to a university in Ghana, but my grades weren't strong enough. So what happened was that they sent me over here. Now coming here at the age of 19 by myself to study art in Coventry Uni. Mind you, I've never been on a plane. I've never traveled, never been away from my family, the youngest of the family, but they still invested in me to come here. And mind you, I didn't know what student loan was because they were paying full international fees. So that let you know how much they believed in the art. Do you know what I mean? I was on my ones. I kept to myself most of the time. No friends, no family, just in a completely different environment.
No gal.
No. You see, this one here. We'll come to that. But yeah, I had to figure it out, and I had to adapt. And I think if I was here with my parents, I would have been very comfortable and complacent. But I'm very glad that I came here by myself, and never been on a train. Like, I had to figure out things for myself. So I was, it helped me. It reminded me of what I was here for. You know what I mean? And when I got to find out about student loan, it was a massive culture shock. People were just dropping out of uni. I'm like, yo, I'm paying like 12 grand a year. How are you just dropping out of uni? They're like, oh, we got student loans. I'm like, what is student loan? Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, I had pressure to do well in uni. And after that, my dad forced me to do my master's. which I did in art and design, and yeah, his influence was very, very heavy. So if his influence was heavy in me pursuing my dream, then it's gonna go all the way through me being an artist full time. You know what I mean? And it's the reason why my work is autobiographical is because there's so much I can talk about within my work. Just migrating from Ghana and coming to the UK in regards to the difference in cultures. And as it begins with me, it extends outside of me. But I believe that my work has to start with me, because if I don't know myself, how can I talk about things outside of that? You know what I mean? So the story always starts with me and it extends outside of that. So with migration, with family, with memory, and nostalgia, because I'm 34 now. I spent almost how many years, 12, 13 years by myself. So the work I create is based off of the memory, the last memory I had with my dad and with my mom or with my brothers. So that alone has so much weight in the conversation to talk about in my work, you know? And yeah, that's how it's heavily influenced my work. And
I think you named it. Obviously, I'm not going to name. Was it Asema?
Asayama.
Yeah, what does that mean?
My last name. So Martin is my first name, and Koby is my
Who are you
middle.
running from? Changing all your names, right?
So
Might be in the crowd today. He's here.
Martin is my first name, Koby is my middle name. Asayama is my last name, which means it will happen for you. So, yeah, so I guess it's happened.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that was quite a lot, so thank you for sharing that.
No
Thank
worries.
you.
Thank you very much.
Joe, I know a lot of your work as well, and it's quite connected because obviously when I said earlier you were Afro-Swedish, because obviously you grew up in Sweden.
Yeah.
And obviously those experiences must have shaped the art that we see today.
Yeah, I think, so my parents migrated from Nigeria, first of all, to Belgium. So they realized that Belgium at the time weren't a good place for them and to raise children. So they thought there was another opportunity to go to Sweden. Not because, they knew that it was a nice place, or it was just because passport situations, all of that, we just go straight there because they're not going to check their passports and things like that. And it was only like recently I started to understand that my names were mixed up because they didn't want to give them the full Nigerian name while they were in Nigeria, all the way from Belgium, then going to Sweden. So I started to... Anyway, so Sweden for me was interesting because where we lived was in a small town called Linköping. And in that space, it was just myself and my family, my two younger brothers, and the school that we went to, we were the only black people there. So we had no idea of the black culture, apart from our parents trying to teach us, where we felt like, no, I don't want to listen to that because we want to be like these white kids because they have all these privileges and all of that.
Your parents come in African attire to pick you up from school, like mine did?
No, not really.
I can't be the only one, because I was saying that I was from Jamaica back in the day when it was cool to be Jamaican, not African. Then my mum would be like, Elizabeth. I'm like, yeah, she's not my auntie's friend, my mum's friend, did it? Not my actual mum, but obviously now I'm proud. But this was the early 90s.
Not
but
at all.
in your case, lucky you.
Not at all. So, so I was raised there, I was born there, obviously, and was there for about 12 years. And in that 12 years, there was a lot of trauma because I was confused. I didn't understand my identity. Even though there was a few black people, as we started growing, we moved to a different town. We moved to like the main city when I started seeing other black individuals like myself, probably not from Nigeria, maybe from Somalia or somewhere else like that. But we connected each other. It's like another person like you, like me. So it was like we can gel with each other. Do you see what I'm saying? But at that time, still, I never understood my identity as a Nigerian. Even though my parents would take us to Nigeria as, for holidays and trying to educate ourselves, I still resisted. And it was only until I moved to the UK, London, where I started to understand more about my culture and my identity and where I'm actually from, because we had more families here, we had friends that were Nigerian, we had friends who embraced themselves as a black person. Yeah. So I started getting more encouraged and more like familiarizing myself with the black culture. So how that kind of interlinked with my practice and art is when I first moved to London, I couldn't really speak English, so that was an issue for me. And obviously, when you can't speak English and you're in school, they're going to terrorize you, obviously.
No ratings at
So
all.
for me, I had to hang around with the boys that were a bit more aggressive to make myself feel, no one can talk to me anyhow because I will punch you up or whatever. Anyways, I'm not going to talk about that. But my point I'm trying to say is that as I was growing, when I was in school, my teachers really found the talent in me in terms of art and my platform and how I express myself. And I never knew that myself. You know, I was a person that had a thing of covering my personality, didn't like sharing. So my teachers at the time were saying, you know, you're really good at this. You're really good at art. And my parents didn't want me to do art. They wanted me to become an engineer. It's quite opposite to you.
Yeah.
Because my parents came from somewhere and they came here and they want a better life.
Yeah.
And having a better life means that it has to come from the children.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
can't, because they're doing, you know, manual laboring in order to get ends meet, you know?
Yeah.
So they relied on us, my brothers, like, you need to be this, you need to be that. So
Yeah.
there was a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
For me, I was not good educationally, like in terms of
Yeah.
like maths and all of that. I was
Yeah.
not good at all.
Yeah.
But my tool was art, just general art, if it's filming, editing, whatever.
Yeah.
So I was growing, I enjoyed it. I was pushed to go to art school at the time, but then I actually didn't do art after that because I wanted to impress my parents. I wanted to, you know, do something else that is worthy to appreciate me because I was the firstborn as well, so I needed to carry that baton of. So anyways, I've come to realize now that I'm at UAE now doing my master's fine art, and it's only now that I understand my identity and my practice and what I'm supposed to do as an artist. And it took so many years, and sometimes it's fine to take years because you now can reflect on those things and now bring it into your practice. The guy who performed yesterday, Magero, shared his amazing piece, and when you asked him the question about what was that piece about and how he managed to say that the reason why he did that work is because he was able to reflect the past and the future of his identity, of what he's been through and how he had this engagement with his parents. And that's the same thing with me. So it's like, for me now, in my practice, I'm trying to find my identity in it. I'm trying to create my own story, you know? And I'm also now looking into, like, you know, the history of Nigeria and where are the holes where no one has actually kind of explained that history. So it's for me to recreate and create new possibilities in my work. And it's only now that I'm becoming more confident and doing more research in my work and trying to respond to that.
I've noticed that you started using the colour pink in a lot of your pieces that sort of have like African men highlighted. Was that intentional?
No, it's not, because when I was young, I just loved colours, bright colours. I feel like bright colours attracts rather than the other colours. And I feel like for me, my work changes all the time anyways. My practice changes all the time, and I do shift. And I feel like sometimes for me, it's like when I'm in a space, I think about a particular time. And so it just changes. So the colours follows with me, so it changes. And I think that's how my colour palette changes.
Just want to thank you guys for like talking about your past and just moving forward to the present. Where do you want black art to go next?
Far. You should go far. Yeah,
Far,
I think you should go far, because for me, I don't know if you guys went there, but I went to the Freeze show not too long ago. And I think it was...
not exhibited there, or was that somewhere else?
Sorry?
Where were your fists quite...
Oh, that was somewhere else. But this was like a prominent show where a lot of artists showcased their work. And there was this lady called Joy Labindro, if anyone have heard of her, and a few other, I think Umar Rashid. saw their work there, and they kind of relate to my practice as well, and what they look at. They look at history and they look at the areas where history has been untold, so they reimagine and create new possibilities. So, and I was reading the art newspaper after the show, and their work sold within an hour for like 40K each or something like that. That is just a beginning. Do you go for for black artists generally? And I feel like we still got a long way to go, but it's amazing to see other artists thrive in that way. But yeah, I think we've got a long way to go, and the only way to do that is to create these kind of conversations, and is to come together as artists and create different ideas. And I feel like that's the only way. I mean, this is only the beginning, you know. So
yeah, the power of like communion and community will spark so many different ideas. And Merrisa, what is the future for you?
I'm here for the 3D artists.
The 3D artist?
Yeah, because I feel that okay, so after I went to 154 the other week at Somerset House, and I go every year.
For those who don't know.
Sorry, 154 Contemporary African Art exhibition at Somerset House. And this was the first year that they had a prolific amount of sculpture, textiles, 3D work. And I think that we have so many platforms for 2D work, for 2D artists here. And that's great. But there are sculptors and there are ceramicists and there are potters. And so I think people tend to forget about the applied arts as well. And I think that the scene for people who kind of like cross between making and applied arts and fine art, I want that to grow as well. I mean, my thing is ceramics, it's clay, it's sculpture, it's metalwork. So I want to see more of that going forward. Yeah.
And coming to Koby, I'm taking a slight detour, but before we can look at our future, we of course are very tightly connected to our past. I just want to talk about some work that you did in East London about a boy that got murdered. Could you tell us a bit about that? And I know you said that his family was so happy that in the present and the future, his name was being spoken about.
Yeah, so I worked with the World Reimagined, which was creatively headed by Ashley Scott Ajay, and a select few of artists were commissioned to create bodies of work on the globe. So in my situation, I was commissioned to the city of Newham to create a globe on social and racial justice. So the brief, when I had a meeting with some of the community members in Newham, and we spoke about the series of events that happened in the 80s and the 90s and then the now. And the brief that was presented to me was very interesting, actually. It had the story of a boy called Eustace Price, and how he was socially and racially profiled and killed. But the story to it was that on the night of his murder, he was on his way home from from an event with his brother. And that's when the attack happened. So he was stabbed in the head, and whilst it was happening, there were off-duty police officers on the bus they saw the entire thing happening. So he was stabbed in the head by a white man who was called, can't actually remember his name.
No one cares about his name.
Exactly. So when the police officers got there, they tried to frame his older brother for killing him. And, the case was obviously taken to the court, and the killer was allowed to walk away, and his brother was put in jail. Yeah, so that was what struck me the most with that story. And this happened in the 80s. So when the brief was presented to me, there wasn't so much information to it, and I had to do my own digging. into the story. And, like 2 weeks before that, I went to the Tate to see Chris O'Feely's No Woman, No Cry, which was a tribute painting to Stephen Lawrence's mother. To celebrate the memory of Stephen Lawrence. So when I heard the story about Eustace, that was the inspiration. That was the reason why I wanted to do that story of Eustace. Because first of all, I'm not even from here. I'm from Ghana. So there's a conversation from where I'm from, and there's a conversation from where I'm from in connection to the story I'm covering. The juxtaposition of it at the end of the day is I'm black, he's black, and he looks like me. So irrespective of where I am, it's something that's happening to people that look like me, and I have to cover it. So eventually, the work was launched at the. Can I actually remember? Westminster Abbey, yes. Yeah. So with all the other artists and the other globes, it was launched, and it was celebrated. So 2 weeks down the line, obviously I'm in my studio, I'm working, and I receive an email from Eustace's older brother, not the one that was put in jail and banned from the Newham community. Apparently there was another older brother, so he was the oldest, and then the second one, and then Eustace. And then, they wanted to meet up and question as to why I decided to do a story on his brother and, whatnot. So eventually I met up with the family, I met up with his older brother, I seen him physically. There's a photo of them protesting for the release of their brother that I referenced in the painting. And he was in there, but I didn't know it was him. I saw him and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that was 30 years ago. So right now he's in the 60s. So when his brother was killed, he was in his 30s. And I saw him physically, and he looked at me, and he was, he was quite upset in the sense that no one reached out to him to involve him in the process of, the whole creation process. But which I admitted to him, but then again, the organization to which I was creating for, which is the World Reimagined, there wasn't enough time to do that. I had 2 weeks to create the globe, and we were under so much pressure because the studio was a shared studio, and the artists were creating in batches. So after 2 weeks, you're meant to leave the space for another artist to come in. Wow. So there wasn't no time at all to, say I'm gonna, and within the contract it said that if your work is not finished, they will get someone else to finish it for you, which is quite absurd. Yeah. So my mind was like, I need to tell this story and I need to do that. So when I met his brother, his older brother, he was quite upset, and he had already done his research on me. Oh, wow. He was like, yeah, Koby, I mean, why did you touch on my brother's story? Because then again, you're going back to opening old wounds, our family's upset, this, that, and the third. And obviously I didn't go by myself. I went with, the organization backed me, and we met individually. So it was the organization, some board members from the organization, and myself, right in front of my globe in Stratford. So, he questioned as to why I touched on that story, and he had already done his research on me. So he mentioned, you weren't even born at a time where my brother was murdered. So I wanted to meet you and ask you why you touched on that story. And I said, what I just said, I've done my research on Stephen Lawrence, because then again, I wasn't born here. Whilst all this was happening in the UK, I was in Ghana, in primary school or secondary school. Do you know what I mean? So by doing that, I'm educating myself. But I told him that is as much as Stephen Lawrence is important and Mark Duggan is important, Eustace Price is important. Yeah. So I did that to celebrate your family and to celebrate the memory of your little brother. Right there and there, he broke down, he was teary-eyed, and he just hugged me. And I was shell-shocked because when I created it because I wanted to educate, inspire, and motivate. People needed to know about the story as much as they know about, the stories of the unfortunate events that have happened to people that look like me. So I think, as much as I almost thought it got me into trouble, I will never compromise. Yeah. I'm never afraid. I have to do what I have to do because that's the story that touched me So from the very moment I started working on it, I didn't compromise on anything. And, you know, to this day, he's got my number. We talk every now and then, and, you know, it's a beautiful thing.
Definitely.
You know? Yeah. So.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a good time to throw it out to the audience. Does anybody have any questions? I know people might be a bit shy. Yes, you can sit, or I can come over with the microphone. Anybody have any questions? Or not even questions, just reflections. That is it going to be... Is Emmanuel here? Okay, cool. Emmanuel, you are here. Emmanuel, sorry, you are here. If you have any questions, you know, you can always reflect on them as well. Has anyone got any reflections of what you've heard? Hi, do you want to come down or to come up? Come down, innit? Come and get your shine in it. Come on. Hi, what's your name? Cheyenne. Hi, Cheyenne. Come through, man. Come sit next to Joe. Good to see
I just want to say, I know some of you personally, so your work is very inspiring. And I just wanted to ask, what do you guys think is, if you're a multidisciplinary artist, say you do clay, say you do painting, sketching, and various other forms of art, what do you think the best way is to promote your various different forms? Because, like, how would it be through a website? Because I know they've got things like Linktree now. Yeah.
Is it to
Just-
us?
just-
Is it to
or
everyone?
just
in general?
I
General.
hold the power. This is my... Thank you so much. Go for it.
Well, I'll go first. I think with being an artist in every sense of the word, like being dance, being music, being whatever, it's 20% creating the work and 80% network. So it goes to community. You isolating yourself and staying in there, you can create all the work you want to create. But when you have a sense of community, it gives you that exposure. Do you get what I'm saying? So for me, it's always important to immerse yourself in the scene. You know what I mean? Because there's always a community. It's important to go to these events, to go to art openings, to go to exhibitions. Do you know what I mean? And introduce yourself. Do you get what I'm saying? Like me, I always have a PDF ready of the new body of work I'm working on. So I'm talking to you, and then I'm like, oh, what? Do you know what I'm saying? So it's and you know, whilst you there, you find your community and you get comfortable. Do you get what I'm saying? But outside of that, obviously you got social media, and then you got your website, and then you got, you know, if that works for you, you got your cards. But never ever be no man's an island. You can't make it work by yourself. You know what I mean? Through that, you're gonna meet a gallerist, you're gonna meet a curator. That's how you get into group shows. That's how you eventually get solo shows. Do you know what I mean? There's always a community that's readily available to help you. So get out of that studio every now and then, take a breather, go to art openings, go to exhibitions, and yeah, just enjoy the process, but never think you can do it by yourself. It's good to create and paint and do all forms of art, but like Ashley said, there's always a community, you know what I mean, out there that's ready to looking for new artists and looking for new talents. Do you know what I mean? So that's how I would do it. That's how I've done it.
Like the
And it's
collective
working.
makers.
Do you know what I
Collective
mean?
makers,
Yeah,
free
so-
membership, and you've got members as well.
Exactly. You know.
Exactly. Some people are extroverts. I think sometimes if you're an introvert, you struggle with that networking.
Yeah.
But it's the passion that will give you that connection. So
You
don't
got-
think, oh, I don't like talk to people, I'm a bit shy. That sort of talking isn't for me. Please,
Yeah.
please still
You
connect
got
to
to
communities.
embrace social media.
Yeah.
You have to. And if you are quite extroverted, then obviously you're not going to want to be out all the time. Like, for me, October has been mad. Like, I am socially done. Like, I'm going to be back in my studio. I ain't coming out until January after this.
Yeah.
But you have to, if you're multidisciplinary, it doesn't really, I don't think it matters. Some people are worried that they might switch between things too much. But I think you just do whatever it is that you're working on at the time. And also, I think sharing the process works a lot as well. So like transparency. This coming from my point of view, where I don't really like being out. I mean, you got some artists that will turn up for the opening of an envelope, but I'm just like,
Let them live their truth. Whatever their truth is, let them do it.
but it's the going out and the networking thing. It is important, but it's just not for everybody. So if you can't physically take yourself into spaces, then you have to have a presence online.
That gives me another question. Representation. So, I mean, I shared a studio with Lizon, actually, Serena. And we shared it with a guy who got into the African contemporary arts in Somerset House. And what I noticed is that particular artist wasn't very extroverted himself, based on what we saw sharing the studio with him, but he had someone representing him. And this is another question about, how do you guys feel about gallery agents or people representing you? And because you're saying if someone is quite a shy, introverted person and they're an artist, how would they navigate that without some sort of direct help? I know you answered it with community support, but is there like a direct? I know some people have like a direct. Well, when we went to the contemporary African arts thing, what I noticed is every room that I went into, even if the artist was there, often the artist wasn't there, but they had people representing them and talking about their work prices and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know.
I'll just share my experience a little bit in that area. So I'm also an introvert, but I'm sitting there talking to you and talking to everyone else. But for me, I had to learn the hard way. I had to learn how to speak publicly. I had to learn how to engage myself socially. Just like what Merrisa says, like as soon as this is done, everything, I'm going into my cave and hide for a little bit and do some work, and then when I'm ready, I'll come back out again. But in terms of representation, when I started again with my practice, naturally you will have friends first who would like engage with your work and say, oh, this is amazing, this, that. Initially, I remember when I had my solo exhibition, I did everything myself, from marketing to promotion to paying the space, the gallery, and everything like that. And my lesson that I learned was that I should have asked my friends, first of all, to get them engaged and promote me and doing this and doing that. And naturally, when you're asked, they will help. And from that, when you create a buzz with just your community, your friends, then your work will speak for itself. People will start hearing about you, and they will start talking for you. You know, your friends, first of all, will start speaking for you. And then after that, you will start having more engagement with gallery who would like to represent you. But sometimes as well, you need to understand the business behind gallery representing you. Do you want gallery to represent you? And what is it that you want to get out of it? It's very important to understand the whole, because in some aspect, art is a business. And from the gallery perspective, they're just thinking about how to make money with you. Yeah? So you need to understand what is it that you want. A lot of artists now don't even need gallery representation. They just do it themselves, and they create their own team. So it's up to you what you want from them, and what is expected from them, and what is expected from you. So,
if you can, get a mentor who's been there and done that.
Yeah.
So,
are you offering?
But I've got two mentors who have been there and done that, and they know the pitfalls and what happens when you have representation. And I have representation for my bronze work, but the other stuff is I'm not represented for my other stuff at the moment. But again, I don't know if I actually want to be, because I think one of the other conversations that we need to have as artists now is, do we actually need that when social networking is so available? I mean, yes, get friends, get people involved to help you, so you're not doing everything. Because I've done that whole curate an exhibition by yourself malarkey, and it's just enough.
Madness.
Yeah, it's mad.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you've got friends that can help you with that kind of thing, then like Joseph was saying, you know, the network spreads that way as well. But I would say if you can get mentors who have been working for a long time, or if you know they know the industry, because there's a dirty side to the art industry, and you can get flipped over quite easily.
Thank you for that. I hope you answered, Cheyenne. Has anybody got any final questions? Anybody? Barney, Emmanuel? No, joking, no. Come through. Emmanuel. Yeah, okay, cool. But you, yeah.
So I'm thinking about, it's a question for Merrisa and Koby, trying to hit two birds, one stone here. Merrisa, you mentioned about 3D work. You see that as the future, You're for that?
I'm all for that.
Was that to the future of...
When I said that, I meant that I want to see more of it.
Okay.
Because I think since focusing more on sculpture, I have now met more black artists who are working in that discipline. And that's not just here, that's also in on the continent, and also in the Caribbean and America as well. Right. So I think that we're kind of moving out of that stage where whenever you go to a gallery, it's all figurative work. Because we've gone through that period where people just want to see black bodies on canvases. Like, I think we're coming to the end of that now. And we need to be more experimentational with what we do and the materials that we use, and also switching between things as well.
Right. So what I'm trying to compose here is, so Koby, you went through what you would do if you were skeptic advisor. One of the main things that you touched on there is about curation. So putting those two together, curation and form. What happened in TV was that we could become our own producers, which means you can have more selection of stuff, but also means that the quality and the arrangement has gone down. So like how there's a Channel 4 and you can have like a whole sort of composed program on Channel 4, whether you like the stuff or not, it was curated to make an identity. From being someone who goes to shows here and there, I just feel like the curator is almost under, it's just a person who right now is really needed. I wonder where you guys sit with curation, and how, I know Instagram is great, but there's something about curation that does that community work, as you was mentioned. It brings the artists together. It creates a dialogue between all the work, and it's just a real experimental place to interact with work in a way that can validate more customers, viewers to customers. Do you know what I mean? I think. So
Are you asking what is the importance of
yeah, now
being
it
a
is.
creator,
Being a
particularly
curator.
being a curator, particularly within the black art thing? You need curators.
Yeah.
We need people who are actually, I mean, you can get artists to you can get several artists to just put all their work in a room, and there'll be no narrative. It will just be random pieces of artwork. You need people who are able to curate stories and tie those artworks together, so that there is a narrative when you go to an exhibition, and it's been curated by someone. You can tell from the moment you walk in, there is a story. There's even down to things as small as the way you want people to navigate around a room. Curators will be able to do that. They will be able to almost manipulate the way people move within a space, so that the story of the artwork is told in the correct way.
So there's still that power for it.
Yeah, and we have really good curators who are working away really quietly as well.
Yeah.
So they're not always out there saying, I'm a curator. They're actually there making exhibitions in spaces, but they're doing it very, very quietly. So it's almost like there's like a secret underground network of curators that are actually there.
Yeah.
We have
You
another
have to
question from Shayna, who's actually, bravely going to come down and ask the question. Guys, give her a round of applause. Come on.
Hi everyone, I'm Shahina. I wanted to thank you because throughout everything, all your personal stories, you said so many inspirational things. So my question is, following on from that inspiration, and as artists we go through sort of highs and lows, and when I go through my low periods I look back on artists that have probably struggled but make it, like for example Faith Ringgold. So my question is this, if you could say just one phrase, one quote to artists in the future when they're going through a struggle, what would that be? One phrase, it could be your own, because I love that envelope one too, and anything like that would be great, or someone you look to when you're feeling a bit like art world is too much.
I would say keep going. For me, it's always like keep going. You know, art is not like a short period. It's a journey. You know, so you have to embrace every moment that you have. So even the lows that you have, you embrace that. You even apply that into your work, because that's when your work and your practice become more powerful. So when you keep going, and there's one thing that when I reflect on my story and what I've been through, and it's like, oh, I just kept going. It may have taken a long period of time, but I kept going, and I will continue to go. So for the future artists, if you are maybe struggling, and I would say just keep going. That's all you need.
And is there anyone you refer to when you want to motivate yourself to keep going?
So for me, I never had any artists of same color that I could say, oh yeah, until now. But for me, I'm a strong believer in Christ. So for me, my faith is allowing me to keep going.
Really nice.
I'll say is just allow yourself to feel everything. Yeah, don't fight it. You know, just feel everything, and then through that, before you know, you're creating a new body of work.
So I think that's something we all have in common. We channel all the emotions into the work.
Because more time we just we suppress it, but it will come back and slap you in the face.
Yeah.
You know, it always does. You know what I mean? It's the same thing dealing with trauma or losing a loved one. You just allow yourself to feel it. Like my dad passed away 7, 8 years. It comes. You know, you just 1 minute you're happy and then but you just allow yourself to feel everything. Like if you need to cry, just cry. If you need to break down, just break down. But the most important thing is don't stay down there because it gets addictive. It gets very comfortable.
Keep going.
Do you know what I mean? Pick yourself up, and then whatever you felt, you're just a vessel. You need to remember that. So it pours out of you. Don't keep it in. And then when the audience come, they take it in and they get inspired as well. Yeah, but yeah, keep going. Consistency.
And you then get to share a story to someone else, and they will be inspired with the story that you've been through. Yeah. And it's because of you kept going, you picked yourself up.
But you also need to remember that the challenges you experience is nurturing you for the bigger things that you're about to experience. So if you're not able to, endure and embrace the difficulty of what you're going through, then how much more was yet to come? So see it as you're bettering yourself, do you know what I mean, to become a better artist, and that's how I see it personally, and, being away from my family, that's another motivator, and, Christ being my personal savior as well, that's another big motivator, my faith in Jesus Christ. So, everyone has their whatever motivates them, but the down thing is consistency. And and keep going and keep believing. And you might not even expect it. Your breakthrough is just around the corner, you know?
It's
So,
the
yeah.
truth. It's the truth.
I would say put it down and try again tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you can't force it.
Mhm.
Sometimes stuff just isn't working or you're just not in the right frame of mind.
Mhm.
And I've been in positions where I have tried to force myself to make stuff and it's just got worse and worse and worse. So there are some times when you've just got to put down whatever you're doing, just put it down and just walk away and leave it for a bit. Because if you get yourself into a mindset, it's very, very hard to get into a negative mindset. It's very, very hard to create something beautiful when you're in that mindset. Having said that, oftentimes when you come out of a negative mindset, that's when you create your best work.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
you've been down for a while, and then you pick yourself back up again, and you've got a banging piece of work that
Yeah.
comes out of it. So yeah.
Thank you so much for answering the question. Thank you so much. Final question, and then we have the bar where you can network. But I have Atlanta out here. And hi, guys, come on. The final question of the evening.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
I think you kind of touched on what I was going to ask just briefly with the previous question. But I wanted to kind of ask you about how does your personal spirituality translate and help you through the process of your work? I remember at the beginning, Merrisa, you were kind of expressing, connecting with the ancestors and, the ancestral, you know what I'm trying to say? Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just a bit nervous, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of spiritual work. I do a lot of work with connecting ancestors, and so for me, I come from a line of people who are creative. So there are artists and there are craftspeople within my lineage, and I find that I have. In my studio, I have an altar in my studio, and I find that before I create anything, I go there first, because I tend to get an idea whether or not I'm going down the right path. And I feel that because it's something that I've practiced for many years, I know when I am doing something that is ancestrally right, or when I'm going off in a direction and stuff is not connecting and things like that. But I think regardless of whether you practice African traditional religions, or whether you're Christian or Muslim or whatever, you know when you've got a connection with a higher power, you know what path you're on, and if you can channel that and that goes into your work, it shows. And also, I think because I work with clay, it's an earth material, so for me it's grounding as well. So a lot of my work is very spiritual because I feel it before I've actually made it. So I think that's probably why I have a lot of trouble letting go of pieces. When people buy stuff, I'm just like, oh, my baby. But yeah, I think when you've got that connection to God or spirit or whatever, you know, and it shows in your work, and it's almost like you're putting a piece of yourself and your spirit into your work as well. Yeah.
That was very beautiful. Thank you. Koby, Joseph, you also spoke about being like Christian and your relationship to God. How does that translate into your process of work?
Prayer, man. It's just, you know what? First of all, I just believe it's the grace of God I'm here. Like, no questions. there's so many of my friends and so many people back home that are less. If my parents weren't in the financial situation they were in, I don't think I'll be here. Do you get what I'm saying? So it was through the grace of God, they had the financial stability to send me here. So obviously me realizing and knowing my purpose and finding my purpose of who I am in God has given me the confidence to create, you know, and through prayer and, you know, my relationship with God, I'm able to create these pieces as a vessel. You know, my gift is my ministry. And, you know, wherever I show my work, that's my church. That's where people come to see the work, you know. So I don't do the talking, the work does the talking for me, you know, and people connect to it through the grace of God, you know. So that's how it works for me, you know, just grace, God's grace, yeah.
Yeah, I think for me it's very similar to Koby as well, but I think when you're raised in a Christian home, so obviously my parents are Christian and was raised, was almost kind of forced initially into going to church and reading the Bible, learn how to pray. And at that time, I was only following orders. When you get to that teenage stage, you feel like rebelling, so you kind of cut that off and do your own thing.
Yeah.
But I see one thing that I've experienced from God and how He's kind of reconnected me to Him was when I kind of left the faith and just wanted to do my own thing. And for me, God has always shown me that I had a purpose. And that could be through people. That could be through friends or through a sign that you've watched something or you did this, whatever. And I've realized that, I've kind of moved away from my purpose. And I feel like if not because of God, same thing, I wouldn't be here today. There's been many, many times that I believe that God has saved me from death experiences, even from suicidal situations where I felt like, you know, I'm going to end my life. But God will say to me that you don't need to end your life because I've got a purpose for you. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. So from that, I know that God is real in my life. And in my way to use my work and my practice is allowing God to use me in order for me to fulfill His purpose.
Yeah. And I think, just to add on to that, in my personal life, being away from my family, I've seen God move in my life differently. It's just, you experience God heavenly when you are isolated, when you're by yourself, because He guides your steps in your decision making, even in my creative process. You know, sometimes, because I don't know, most artists would agree with me. When you're creating, it's like an out-of-body experience. You know, it's, you're there, but you're not there. You know, and then when the piece is finally finished, it's like, I know I created this, but it was being.
It extends beyond you.
It does extend beyond you. Do you know what I mean? And as you continue your relationship with Christ and with God, you get to realize that it's not about me. You know what I mean? It's bigger than me. You know, so you take it more seriously, and it helps in your growth as an artist. So, yeah.
I would just like to thank you guys for being very vulnerable and sharing your experiences and your insights, and it's very inspiring. And I'd like to thank my mum for booking me the ticket to come here.
Hey, shout out, Mumsy. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I was just kind of like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. And she didn't say anything. She was like, what's your email? And I looked at my email and she was like, yeah, you're going to go, yeah? I was like, okay, yeah.
Are you going to join membership?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Guys, I just want to thank Merrisa Hylton.
That's beautiful.
And of course, Koby Martin. Thank you guys.
Yes,
Can you give a big round of applause? Thank you so much. We've come to the end of a 2-day extravaganza. I really hope for those who were here yesterday and today or whenever, you guys have really got something from this, something to reflect. You've heard some key names. I just want, if you guys do nothing else after doing the feedback and joining the membership, after that, just researching one of the names that you've heard today, and sharing that within your networks, because I feel like we all have a sphere of influence, and we're not going to get to a post-racial society, one that is more equitable, if we're not sharing what we're learning in these diverse spaces, in our spaces which may not be as diverse. So just again, I want to just bring up the other co-founder, Lizon Sabrina. And just real quick, man. Shout out, Comfort, man. Comfort, you done so. Comfort. Comfort. Come up for a second. Comfort hates all this bullshit. She hates all this, but she's done so much behind the scenes stuff. She's a graduate as well. Just tell people a bit about your work.
I'm a filmmaker. I make films about black boys and masculinity. But yes, I'm just finishing my grad project at the moment, so that should be out soon. No.
Okay. But she's one of the members of the collective, and she has been like the blood behind all the stuff that we've done. So thank you, Comfort. Don't hate me. So guys, I want to give the final word to myself, to the two amazing co-founders, Lizon Sabrina and Joseph. What would you like people to go away with? What are your last words, and what can we expect next?
Well, thank you for that conversation, and public engagement was there and present. It just goes to show how much these kinds of conversation are needed, and that we need to do more talks like this, maybe on a smaller scale. But I am so grateful for everyone that came today and yesterday, and Royal Greenwich Museums, obviously Comfort, Joseph. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. It really means a lot.
Just one. Yeah, I've got a mic as well. Isn't it? It's all right. Okay. Just one more thing before we go and network and talk more outside is just to let you know that me and Sabrina started nearly about 2 years ago, less than 2 years ago, and it was just us two really just having that same vision to make sure things like this continuously happen. And so to people out there who have similar visions, is to come together and do something similar like this. It's not just for us to just do it, but there's people out there that have the powers to do it. And it's very important that we continue to do this, and there's a narrative behind it. So I just wanted to just share that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Thank you so much, guys, for all the artists that have spent time talking to me for the last 2 months and just embracing me in this community. I have no talent, but you guys, I have. I appreciate it.
You did a great job, actually. Well, I just have some words to say. Okay. I am Lizon's mother, and I wanted to say a few words because I think you gave us a lot of food for thought. And obviously, Lizon has been educated in a white environment because of us, with a lot of French relatives, white relatives. And I think I would have liked to have this conference before when she was young, because maybe we had not realized how important it was for her to have a positive black representation and be an artist or be whatever. Lizon was telling me yesterday that we were always referring to Naomi Campbell or Serena Williams, but I'm sure we could have found other positive representation. And thank you very much for this talk. It was very interesting. So, and a lot was for thought.
Thank you for sharing. Art is the heart, and I think that's a beautiful way to end it. Thank you, everyone. Please speak to the other artists and each other within the outdoor foyer. Thank you again. Take care.